We've learned recently that Marilyn Manson has reached an agreement to turn himself in on charges from a 2019 concert in New Hampshire. Manson stands accused of spitting at a videographer, at which point the spit made contact with the person who was filming the show. The alleged victim was working for the concert venue and was operating a camera, the type of footage you see on the Jumbotron screens at the venue so everyone in the crowd can see. The arrest warrant was issued back in October of 2019 following the August 18th show, with the Guilford Police Department recently announcing that he has charges for 2 counts of Class A misdemeanor simple assault. After learning of an agreement that had been reached regarding Manson turning himself in so the case could proceed in court, we have reached out to the chief of the Guilford Police Department for comment on this development, and we have received a response back, a written statement which details all of the developments in the case recently and the next steps. We're going to read that for you now. Guilford, New Hampshire Chief of Police Anthony Burpee shared the following statement, which read, "We've been in a holding pattern as Mr. Warner has a New Hampshire attorney who has been coordinating with his West Coast attorney and publicist. Therefore, we are simply looking for Mr. Warner to turn himself in on the active warrant so that we can proceed. With all that said, here's the latest update I can provide. Our in-house prosecutor has reached an agreement with Mr. Warner's attorney for him to turn himself in on the warrant in Los Angeles. Our prosecutor has also spoken with a detective at the Los Angeles Police Department in order to walk him through the process of what needs to take place regarding the processing of paperwork once Mr. Warner turns himself in. So, here is the process moving forward. Our prosecutor will send a copy of the warrant to the LAPD detective contact. The LAPD detective will contact Mr. Warner's LA-based attorney to arrange for a time for Mr. Warner to turn himself in. On the arraigned date and time, Mr. Warner will report to LAPD in order to be processed. He will go through their booking and bail process and will be provided with an initial New Hampshire District Court appearance date, which will be determined once Mr. Warner turns himself in. If Mr. Warner turns himself in within the next few weeks, his initial arraignment and appearance will likely be scheduled for mid-August. For such appearances and arraignments, one of 2 things may occur. 1, Mr. Warner and his attorney will waive his appearance and enter a not guilty plea, which will satisfy the arraignment process with a future court date to be set by the court. Or 2, the court itself will, in line with their current pandemic protocols, cancel the initial appearance and arraignment date and instead schedule what's called a case status hearing on a date to be determined by the court. The LAPD detective will return all paperwork to our prosecutor, who will then submit to the New Hampshire District Court. This paperwork will include a copy of the original arrest warrant affidavit prepared by the investigating officers. As is done in some cases, Mr. Warner's New Hampshire attorney may then make a request to the court to seal the arrest warrant affidavit so that it's not available to the media or public prior to the court process. Such a request will either be approved or denied by a judge, as that falls under the court's purview. Our PD does not release such affidavits, nor would we release any arrest reports prior to the entire matter being fully adjudicated through the court process. This is not unique to Mr. Warner, it is standard practice. Mr. Warner's New Hampshire attorney has alluded to our prosecutor that he will likely ask for such paperwork to be sealed. This is completely within attorney practices and rights to do so on behalf of their respective clients. From there, we wait to see how the court then handles the matter, as there may be a plea agreement reached prior to a possible trial, or it may move directly forward to a trial. The backup in our local court, as with the courts across the country due to COVID, could very well mean that nothing further may happen until 2022. What this means for us is that, thanks to over 300,000 Facebook comments and shares, many besmirching our agency for even filing such charges, it has forced Mr. Warner to finally address his outstanding warrant, which will in turn allow the victim of the crime to have her say or day in court in order to hopefully hold Mr. Warner accountable for his actions. What our PD has no involvement in whatsoever is the civil proceedings the victim may be pursuing against Mr. Warner, as that is outside the law enforcement purview. The victim reported the alleged crime to us the day after she had been assaulted, which is contrary to a statement Mr. Warner's LA-based attorney made regarding the fact that the victim had been looking for a $30K payout when turned down, proceeded with filing a police report. This is emphatically false. Criminal investigations and civil suits run separately from one another. Our investigation took several months to complete before we had adequate probable cause to apply for an arrest warrant and were subsequently granted one. Therefore, between the reporting of the crime to police and the issuance of the arrest is when I am guessing the victim filed a civil suit against Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner's New Hampshire attorney has advised us that once his client turns himself in, the publicist will be taking all media inquiries. Therefore, the attorney has respectfully asked our agency not to give his name out. Hope this helps. And thanks for your patience, as much of this matter has been out of our hands while we wait for the attorneys to do their things. Thanks, Chief Tony Anthony Bean Burpee. We will be awaiting further information as Marilyn Manson prepares to turn himself in. Likely we will receive additional information once that arrest happens. But as he mentioned, any court proceedings could last into 2022 due to backups in court related to the COVID pandemic. That's the latest Rock Feed update for now. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss the latest news and updates.